Hey everyone, welcome to Flywheel, your number one source for everything Frax, DeFi, and everything in between. If you want to know what's going on in the world on chain, you've come to the right place. This is DeFi Dave, here with capital K, and we're here to help you harness the power of the flywheel. And this time around, we had a fellow podcaster, DGen, and honestly all around enthusiast and lover of the space that we're in. We had Rogue Itachi on from Yunt Capital. And honestly, from the beginning till the end, we just hit it off and we just kept on flowing from the get-go. I really liked vibe with him from literary word cell level. Honestly, like we both love the narrative and storytelling, and how can we better communicate the space to both internally to people that are involved with it and externally to people that are curious about it. Kiet, what are your thoughts on this one?
Dude, I think this is honestly one of my favorite pods. I feel like in the beginning, you and Rogue just had this bromance word salad thing going on. I was like, all right, I gotta come in here and then ask some hard questions and really drill down, because he's obviously a super humble dude, and he's done great stuff in the space. He's helped a ton of builders, and obviously he pushed out his content. Good will Yunting. So everybody go and check that out as well after listening to this pod.
Yeah, no, and I've listened to their podcast so many times before, so it was really a treat to have him on and kind of full circle, because I remember just walking around and trying. It's hard to find good content in this space, and they definitely hit the mark with Goodwill Yunting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and on that note, if you want good content and you want more of it, don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell button, comment, let us know what you think of our Flywheel content. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Flywheelpod. Join our Telegram group at Flywheelpod. You can follow me on Twitter at DeFi Dave.
You can follow me at 0xcapital_K.
And let's get the flywheel spinning. Do you hold ETH but don't know what to do with it? Want to earn those juicy liquid staking derivative yields but don't know where to start? Well, FrxETH is there for you. FrxETH is Frax's native LSD solution, allowing you to earn boosted yields in multiple ways on your ETH. If you want to get started, go to app.frax.finance and turn your ETH into FrxETH today. Today, joining us for this episode of Flywheel, we have on Rogue Itachi from Yunt Capital. Yunt Capital it's like a collection of anons, builders. They're their own VC firm, but mainly they populate this Discord channel and they just share alpha with each other. They have each other's backs. I'm a huge fan of their podcast. I think honestly, a lot of inspiration, especially being for builders by builders, comes from Yunt Capital. So it's really an honor to have you on, Rogue.
Oh, thank you, man. That's so sweet. Yeah. It's been a crazy ride with Yunt and the podcast, but I have a lot of fucking fun, and you guys are doing some dope shit out here too. So I love it, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Of course. Can you give us our listeners who aren't familiar with Yunt Capital a little bit of history about it, and how'd you guys get into doing a podcast?
Yeah, for sure. So Yunt kind of started, we were all hanging out in the Alchemix server just back in kind of the early days, and it was such an awesome community back then. And there's just a group of us, and we were all anonymous, and we're always shit posting together, always aping into horrible Ponzi's together, and once in a while sharing some alpha and making good plays and ideas. And eventually we just kind of spun off and started our own Discord with really the core people, and we just realized we had a lot of people, really smart people with distinct skills and ideas, and we began to basically meme about being a VC firm. And then people came to us and yo, we're down. Do you want to invest in our project? And we're like, hell yeah. And so it was pretty awesome to see that. And we've just kind of snowballed, and we have some incredible partners in this space. We love working alongside people. And I mean, we really pride ourselves on being very hands-on VC. We like to, frequently talk to our partners, throw out ideas, help them with whatever, marketing, tokenomics, building, like whatever and wherever we can help. We love being involved. And so we're trying to be a very kind of different VC in this landscape, not just shoveling money wherever. And so, yeah, that's been a lot of fun. And in terms of the podcast, I'm just someone who always loves learning. And that's one of the things I love about crypto is there's always something new to kind of learn. And so I was just like, there's so many smart people out there. I don't know enough and I want to talk to them. And, hopefully some other people can learn from our conversations. So I spun up a pod and started getting some really exciting guests and was like, hey, I have questions, and I seem to be pretty decent at asking questions and making some jokes, and people seem to enjoy it. So it's been it's been an ongoing project for me, but I love it. I learn a lot from it. I have a lot of fun, and it seems like, listeners do as well, which is really, what matters. So yeah, it's kind of our background there.
So as a podcaster, what do you think makes good content? Like what do you think makes like a really stellar interview? Like, oh, like that one hits.
Yeah, I think it's a mix of a few things. I think I'm always a fan of having humor in there. It just keeps the attention of listeners, whenever possible, and just like a little nice balance of humor here and there keeps people listening and engaged, which, over like a 45-minute hour podcast, I think is important, even if people like to keep it on the background. But for me, it's also just about like honesty and curiosity. As the host, I like to be really honest with what I don't know and what I do know, and really curious about, what can I learn from this person, from this builder, from this, behemoth in the space, because I know I'm a smooth brain. I barely get, anything. So having on these awesome guests is an opportunity to learn from people who have been doing it longer, people who are smarter, people who are really good at specific areas or things that I really don't know about. And so I like to just bring that curiosity whenever possible. And it seems like that gives the opportunity for, the speakers to talk about what they're passionate about, rather than me trying to like pigeonhole them into one thing or another. And that's what I've found. And that's kind of how I like to do it. But I'm curious, what about you guys? What do you try and like strive for on your pod, or what do you think makes for a great episode?
As a fellow smooth brain in arms, smooth brain in Christ, I definitely agree with you on being intellectually curious and just trying to learn. I only know so much, and I know what I'm good at is listening and trying to translate complex ideas into easy to understand concepts.
Yeah.
So when I have like a lot of builders and guests on, trying to like take what they're building and try and like, you'll see it in my eyes when I try to like rehash and rephrase what they just said and interpret it. And I'm hoping like, oh, like the listeners can get like a better idea of like what's going on. What about you, Kiet?
For me, I like to dive deep, bro. Like I'm the guy on the pod where I was like, oh, all this, a soft, touchy feeling about, building is great. That I dive right in there and be like, explain to me the risk of your protocol. How many, how long is your data point back testing? Where does the yield come from? Like, I love it. Show me it on the chain. So Dave and I have a great balance.
Yeah. Because I'm like the idealist. I'm the word. So like, I like, kind of painting a picture of the dream of like what can be, what could be, right. Sell me and I'll help you sell. And kids like, where are the numbers? Show me like how it works. Is it sustainable? It's a great combination.
Yeah,
honestly.
That's a great balance. I love
that. Yeah. But let's get like right into it. I'm curious. From all the guests you have on, like, what are like the best pieces of alpha you've gone on from past guests?
Ooh, man, that's such a hard question. We've had so many brilliant people on over the course of, it's been a good bit over a year now, I think. I think back to our first episode actually with Fiscantes, and we were talking about Olympus in the very early days, but he just dropped so much like knowledge about like philosophy of like how people act in markets and just like how people act in general. And, some of the things he talked about back then are just still so relevant and so pertinent. And so like I think back to a lot of his comments often, and how he takes the philosophy of crypto of like, this is all just one big experiment, and a lot of shit's gonna fail and blow up, but like the shit that does work, that does create something new and decentralized and transparent and awesome, like that's what we're here for. And I that resonates with me, because I do think a lot of this is experimental. And then we've had so many builders on that have just fucking blown my brain wide open. Like a more recent one is like Doug from FrxETH, where he was just yeah, he's a brilliant dude.
Reaction.
Yeah, that's the right reaction. He's just such a
how did that one go? Yeah,
he completely like changed the way I think about exchanges and markets and dexes, and how that whole space runs, like from top to bottom, behind the scenes, user experience, MEV side of things, just all of it. And so I just felt like I had such a more full grasp of how that works, and how price finds itself, and the ways in which there's toxic, price action liquidity, and good, and, flows and all that. So I just felt like my brain expand, with each word he said on that episode. So it's really cool. But man, it's just been so many awesome guests over the years. It's hard to even, pin it down.
It was a trip having Doug on. Someone send Doug like my reaction to that, because that was so good. I'm like, I'd love to have him on. So Doug, if you're listening, hit me up.
Yeah,
we can talk croc swap and everything. Yeah. So that's really cool. Yeah. So like same thing with us. Like some of my favorite guests that we've had on are threaders, like Haim and Barry. People that live on the chain, observing what's going on. Haim like was our second episode ever, and he was just dropping knowledge bomb after knowledge bomb, and me and Kiet were just like sitting in just like silence and amazement, like in jaw drop, like just keep going, Haim, keep going.
Yeah.
And then having like the builders on, like Jala, and fucking sorry, Indigo. No, I'm sorry, from the Olympus guys. The Olympus guys on. Indigo. Yeah. That it was great, like hearing their story, like talking builder to builder. That's what I love. So whether it's talking to them, talking to Xerox from Redacted, like having like those type of conversations, and of course having like the deep Frax Alpha podcast, because we're like the only source for like Frax information, for certain Frax information, and just like getting like real deep into the protocol in ways that hasn't been done ever, or like previously in the past. It's just really cool, and just like learning about it and trying to like tell the story of Frax better, because it's like, Frax is one of those protocols that's just so dense and deep. To really get a grasp on it, you have to have like level 4 of like being in DeFi and crypto, and even then, like there's like more to go.
Yeah.
So just like I think like all of us as podcasters, we're just storytellers, and we're trying to tell the story of crypto and DeFi in a manner that does it justice.
Yeah, that's so funny that you say that, because I originally come from a writing background where I studied literature, and I was a fiction writer. Yeah,
I wasn't a fiction writer. I was a political science major and history philosophy minor. So all I did was write papers, just like nonstop.
Yeah, no, I feel you, but it is I think such a skill to be able to communicate in this industry, and whether it be like super complex concepts, or just the understanding the narratives behind things, or why something may become important, or like imagining how it could build out to this future, necessity in this space. It's a creative skill that I think is really important. And like you're saying on the podcast, like that's one of my favorite things, is being able to have on these incredible guests, and they open my imagination to all these new possibilities. And then me being able to like break it down in easier ways, like you do well, and or even just like saying, okay, well, shit, we can go from here, or build out this, or this could, create this sort of atmosphere or new opportunities for people. So it's unlikely, I think, for most people kind of pairing, but I find it to be really important and works well in this space.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually such a great and underrated pairing. We need more storytellers. And that leads me to my next question. With that, like fiction, writing, storytelling, literature background, like what do you think DeFi protocols and crypto in general can do better to write its story? Because I feel like that's something that crypto really struggles with, both from a narrative perspective, from a linguistical perspective, like trying to tell our story. Like I feel like a lot of people from the outside are confused. A lot of people that might have taken the crypto pill, trying to like navigate their way through the space, are confused. Like, what can we do better to be better storytellers in the space?
That's such a good question. I think part of it comes down to like we're still finding our identity, right? Like we have trusted these big CeFi guys like SBF and 3AC and all of this, and now we're getting burned on a lot of that. We have, you know, in some ways like trusted DeFi, and some of that has worked really well, but we've also like hung our hats on things that haven't worked so well in the bear market. Like, you know, possible tokenomics things and just, you know, valuations and stuff like that. And then we have aspects where, you know, people are just like, this is all about the money. I'm just going to buy whatever goes up next. And so I think there is, we have to kind of understand all of the different aspects and figure out what our path forward is. And to your point, I think this is about a group narrative, right? Like what is important to us in this space. And as we figure that out, we can push a stronger narrative forward. And I think when it comes to DeFi, like something like SBF shows, in my opinion, so much why we need these transparent, these decentralized protocols. And yet the narrative isn't quite coming out that way, right? We're still getting the crypto's all a scam narrative because of the FTX collapse. And so if we can better build out this narrative of what our core principles are and why we're building the things we're building, I think it will resonate with a lot of people, but we just need to say it in like a succinct, understandable, and to your point, like a good story way where anyone can come from any place and be like, okay, that's something that resonates with me. Like, I don't want to trust this person with my money, or I don't want to, you know, trust this thing with all of my money, or I want to have other options when it comes to custody. And I kind of had this conversation in Costa Rica with a bunch of people, just normies, as to like, they didn't understand the draws of crypto. And as I was explaining this, they're like, okay, like there's alternatives here that are really important. And I think that's what crypto does best. We create opportunities, we create alternatives, and being able to like build out that aspect of the story, I think will be really important moving forward.
Yeah, so let's break it down. What are those core principles you think that we should be pushing? And what are those values that we should be pushing that will, you know, shape the narrative in the future?
For me, it comes down to transparency, decentralization. It comes down to safety too. In terms of protocols, like I love DeFi, but right now I don't feel comfortable dropping, you know, $100,000 into a protocol for a 3% yield. Like the risk to reward is not there because of something because of the hacks in the space. And so like, that's something we need to get better about. And I think that's something that just comes over time, but it is important, right? Like we're not going to have normie adoption if they can lose all their money in a random rug, you know, or a random hack.
Yeah.
And I think long-term, like we do want these transparent, decentralized, trustless systems to be used by people who need them, right? People who might have access to good banks, who might have a currency that's super inflated, who, you know, don't trust the monetary policies of their governments or whatever, right? And so like, to me, those are the core principles, and inclusivity, just open opportunity, again, like, being anon, like I think it's really important to have a space where people can come and present their skills and be given opportunity, right? Like I was saying, I've a literature can't speak for a second, background.
A literature background.
Yeah, as you can tell by my expert use of language, I have a literature background. But, you know, I came into this finance world, and if I tried to go to a Wells Fargo and like, hey, I want to be a venture capitalist, here's my resume, I write stories, they'd be like, you know, go fuck yourself. But in this space, I can come through, say like, hey, this is what I do, this is what I have to offer, these are where my skills are. You know, if you like it, you know, let's work together. If you don't, then, you know, I'll find something else. But just having that open opportunity was so huge for me because I don't have that traditional resume, and yet I am really good at this stuff. And so these are the core values that really excite me about crypto. Thank you. I appreciate the hype up.
Yeah.
But
I'm the podcast host. I have to be the hype man for the guests.
Keith's like, prove it to me. Prove me you're good.
It's like,
show me.
Let me check the
chain. No, please don't check the chain. I'm down bad, bro.
You're good. I couldn't agree more. Like, for me, when it comes to like what crypto, Web3, and DeFi should value, I think it's constant encouragement of experimentation and iteration. We had on, Amin and Sam, a few months back, and what Amin pointed out, like, what's really cool is we can do these monetary experiments that used to just be academic papers in real time, and like constantly like analyze them, evolve them, see what works, what doesn't work. Like, that's really cool. And we can build like a better financial system that way, something that works. And who knows, like, especially with observing stablecoins and observing like how stablecoin experimentation has went from the beginning of the first gen of stablecoins, which was almost 2 years ago, till now. It's been like really interesting to watch. At times terrifying, at times really exciting. Like, the highs are super high, the lows are super low. But at the end of the day, like, the TAM of stablecoins is the global economy. Like, everything just goes back to stablecoins. And, that's why, like, I have my story about FrxETH I mentioned a bunch of times, but that's why, like, I find this experimentation so interesting. And like what you said, like, anonymity, meritocracy, like, anybody, doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter your gender, your age, where you come from, your background, where you were born, like, if you can build and you're hungry, like, there's a place for you in crypto. And that's what I really love about it. Like, it doesn't really care about anything else. It really says, like, fuck you to like the old like standards and traditions of the old world. And it's like, okay, like, what new traditions are we going to build in this new world? And so, that's what I'm here for. I'm here for the culture, and I'm here for like supporting builders.
So, like, I love hearing what you guys are saying earlier about how there's a meritocracy. We're here to build something, and we are here to provide inclusiveness and bring all people in. But yet we have billion-dollar rugs, $100 million exploits. Bridges are nowhere safe. So I'm trying to understand, like, where are we in this narrative of everybody come, you're hungry, come and build with us. We're going to build something amazing, and billions of people are going to use it. Like, where are we on this track? Because I can't imagine you would be experimenting with a billion users. This is like the world's most dangerous game of Jenga.
I think I saw this point raised online recently. Like, with all the positive merits of cryptos, like, to be objectively honestly speaking, it does attract a lot of grifters and a lot of like short-term minded people. And you see that with like the SBFs and the 3ACs, and like how they acted in the space as like total extraction profit maxis to an unhealthy degree. And it's really toxic. To your point of like, how can we like defend against that? I think it's like a matter of calling them out more. I think like people need to be more vocal, like, and like the problem is like there's no reward for being vocal against mobs. You only get crucified by the mob. Like, look at what was his name? Like Al God and Freddie Reynolds and them when they were going up against Del Quan last year. There's nothing gained unless you bet like $1 million, of course. There's nothing gained. There's so it's like the incentives are there more to like just like be quiet and build. But as we're like realizing, like, for like the collective good of the space, you can't just be quiet. So
I'm going to take a kind of different approach, although I really like what you're saying for sure. I think it's a struggle in a way because at the end of the day, this is kind of a money game, right? And money games attract money hungry people. And for all the opportunities we have in crypto, I think the biggest one is to reimagine a financial system, right? One that can work for people as opposed to have some sort of ulterior motives or obfuscation or whatever that has like in 2008 or the past, left the normies in the dust, right? Left them holding the bag, so to speak. And so that's an incredible opportunity. But to your point, it comes with a lot of pitfalls when you're trying to build that out. Like when you're building anything from scratch, especially things that are experimental and theories and ideas, right? It is uh it is hard. I mean, you're starting from the base layer, and um there aren't these insurances that there are in the traditional world, and sometimes for the best, but often that hurts people. And so like knowing those risks, I think, is really important. And that's why it's a degen game right now. But for it to be a long-term normie game, like we do need to shore up these things, right? We can't have an experiment like if you're going to call USD or UST an experiment, right? Like you
Mhm.
can't have that blow up this space. You
Mm-hmm.
can't have it get so big that it's whatever $12 billion and
20
sends
billion.
everyone into 20 billion, yeah, and sends everyone into mass liquidation, right? Like it can't get. And that's kind of the struggle of a bull market, right? Where it's just throwing money into these early things, and the risk to reward is so high that the degens will take it, but it can leave a lot of the people that do want the more secure aspects of crypto uh, burnt sometimes. And so I think the bear market, for all the terribleness that is going on, one of the opportunities here is that you are allowed to build and experiment and iterate without everyone throwing into $1 billion into your protocol day one, or before the smart contracts even like fully published, right? Like that is being able to experiment with less money in the pool, and with more intelligent investors, I think, is important. And I think we'll see more gated releases, more like more caps to vaults, or things like that in the future, right? But I do agree with your point. Like if we want this to be the future, if we do want this to be a real financial alternative, it can't be this many blowups. It can't be this many, rugs. It can't be this many, hacks, right? Like a normal person can't be like, okay, I'm going to put in, you know, even 25% of my money, and believe it's going to stay there. And then, oh shit, it's gone, right? Like that's just too much of a risk for anyone. So I do agree with what you're saying. And that's kind of what we're trying to do here, right? Is build something better for the future.
Yeah, in
And
terms
like the
of,
reason why I
go
brought
ahead.
that up,
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say the reason why I brought that up was because like all these blue chips DeFi, even Aave with the whole Aave curve attack, right? It makes it, or rather, a very profitable trading strategy. Is like that actually caused me to rethink, like, wow, is like DeFi even safe? And this is like the most blue chippity blue that you can
Yeah,
get. This is Aave.
chippity blue.
Right? I'm like,
Chippy blue.
so where do you go from here if this is
Yeah.
like the best thing you can park your
So,
money in, and it's no longer quote safe?
so
Well,
this
didn't that
is,
guy end up losing money?
yeah,
Yeah,
he,
he
it
did.
was it was an unprofitable trading
But yeah,
strategy.
I get the point, right? Like to be able to manipulate liquidity, in these types of environments isn't like, ooh, yay, you know.
Yeah, that leads me to my next question. So, like, if we were to make this safer for normies and regular people, does that require the government stamp of approval? Like, does that require, but regulation not in like trying to like say like, oh, you can do this or you can't do this, more in regulation of like these are like the rules, these are the instructions. This is like what you can do, what you can do, what you can't do. What well, give more guidelines than like trying to like more guidelines than anything. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, is regulation required to get like the normies comfortable in?
I think that's a good question. We've talked a lot about regulation after the YSC collapse, or after the FTX collapse, on
Mm-hmm.
our Yunt Capital podcast. I think what I would like to see is intelligent guidance around regulation,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
So that like people who actually know what this shit is, what it does, why we're building it, right? For them to create like clear and coherent guidelines in a way as to like can be what can be used and why, and like how. And I think we don't want the regulators coming in and being like, okay, this is all this, and we're going to use laws from 100 years ago to try and regulate it. Like, that's never going to work.
Mhm.
But to the flip side, for them to be able to like pick and choose where they want to attack or why, or building a protocol. I see this a lot with our partners. Like, they're building protocols and there's just so much gray area around regulation that they don't know how or what to build, or if in the future it'll be compliant. And like, that level of gray area doesn't help anyone, I think, because it makes it hard for the builders to know what they can and can't do. Regulators, it just makes them unsure about, gives them kind of pick and choose ability, right? Like, in a bad way, and they can get wrong as to what should be regulated and what shouldn't. And but I think regulation is going to be really important in the future. And if we did have clarity as to regulatory guidelines and kind of remove some of that risk from the system, I think that does help, because I see it in builders and investors as well. Like, it's so open right now that no one really knows what's safe and what isn't, in that sense.
Yeah, and if that regulation does come, it's going to completely change the landscape, whether for better or for worse. Because right now we're in this kind of wild west gray area environment where people are like unsure, like what's right, what's wrong. Like, sure, there's like certain regulation in some areas, but not too. No one's really sure. But once like things get like sure, then and then it will probably bring like a lot more builders and a lot. I would call them less risk averse builders, and it's going to really change the environment of like what's being built, honestly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, as a second order effect here is like, okay, let's
Mm-hmm.
assume that we did have regulation in place already. How would that have stopped something like the Luna anchor implosion, right? Or how would that stop FTX's kind of fraudulent, commingling of funds? Like, that's fraud, right? It's outright, with or without regulation, that would have occurred anyways, right?
Well, wasn't the FTX US arm actually fully solvent because they weren't allowed to like commingle the funds in that way?
The FTX
So I
Japan
think
one
to like,
was, yeah.
yeah, so I think in like some small way, even if it wasn't 100% because of that regulation, like, that actually did help users, right? In that, like, it couldn't happen on the FTX US side because of how that's set up. And like, that's a good thing, right? Like, that not happening is a good thing. But I think I agree, regulation doesn't necessarily stop all fraud or criminal activities or anything like that. And I'm not sure it would have even stopped Luna, but I think having clarity again for builders is important. Like the tornado cash thing, if you're building something
Mm,
that might kind of be a little considered a risky build, and you just see the tornado cash guy go to jail, like,
that's fair.
no,
No, absolutely,
how are you
yeah.
gonna fuck that? Like, I'm
I'm
not putting
outie.
my freedom on the line to like build a decentralized protocol. And even if it's one that's important, right? Like, I think
Yeah,
there's
that's
iterations
fair.
of the tornado cash model that can be a bit clear on the regulation side, but also still really helpful and secure for users, and make that side of DeFi safer. But like, you're not going to build that right now, because of regulation and the crime activity. So I think there are areas in which, giving people confidence as to saying like, okay, you're allowed to experiment in these ways, and you really can't in these ways because it puts a lot of funds at risk, or it's promotes this sort of scammy activity or whatever, right? And so that's kind of what I'm hoping for, just really intelligent guidelines that will like push things in the right way, where it creates more opportunity without holding back some of these experiments that we think are so important to crypto.
Got it. And you know what? Let's go
What do you
right
think is the most
into.
important? Okay, yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
As wanted to ask Ro, like, what does he think is the most important DeFi experiment right now? Is it more dexes, lending protocol, bridges, stable coins? Like, where are
Ooh.
you thinking that we need more experimenting?
That's such a good question. I actually think this stablecoin space is the most important right now because it's the biggest point of failure. Like, if,
Yeah.
well,
Most on the line.
well, yeah. And uh, I think if for some reason, if this were to happen to have happened to Circle and Coinbase and not FTX, like everything would have went to zero. I think like
Yeah.
the loss of USDC would be like that would be the end of DeFi for actually 10 years, in my opinion, because it's so integrated in so many stable coins. And it is like the de facto stable coin, and people already like are afraid of USDT, where like no one's gonna be like, oh, that one's left, so USDC just died, but I'll still use that and YOLO all my money into that. Like it would just, I think that is really the like that picture of like all the building blocks and there's like one tiny stick like holding up the whole side. Like I think USDC is that right now. And I think I think it's safe, to be fair. I'm not necessarily worried about it. I'm not a doomer on USDC or anything, but I think for long-term adoption and just for the safety of the space, like we do need an alternative to USDC that is decentralized, that is backed, that is safe, that is secure, right? Because we can't rely, as we've seen with FTX thing, with 3AC, with Luna, whatever. Like no matter how safe something appears, we can't put all our hope into one thing. And so like that is where I would love to see some like stronger iteration in the future, and creating something that's really strong, really safe, really stable. I think that should be a really important area of focus for DeFi in the future. But it's also a tough one, I commend you guys for building a stable coin, because it's not easy. It's a really tough one.
You really have to be a masochist to build a stable coin, because there's DeFi, which is like, you got to be careful. But then there's stable coins where the success is binary. It's either 1 or 0. It's either worth something or it's not.
Yeah.
So like you really gotta be,
sure.
You have to be like a brain surgeon. You gotta have 100% hit rate. Otherwise you're just dead.
That's what I'm saying. Like someone else, I would really love for you to do it, because I'm not doing that shit. I mean, I wouldn't know how anyway, but
we're here to support. We're here.
I'm here to support.
Yeah,
exactly.
So going back with USDC. Do you think it's like, if you were to speculate, is it like something with Circle? Is it something with Silvergate? Like, what makes you uncomfortable about US like centralized stablecoins like that?
So I'm not, like I was saying, I'm not actually super worried about it in terms of it being insolvent. But I think like something could happen with regulation, right? Where all of a sudden regulators, if they were to pull some like a really out of left field, it's possible, right? Or like a really out of left field, bankruptcy or something that happens in TradFi that actually leads to like a USDC going down, right? Where it's just, again, I'm not super worried about USDC right now, actually, but the fact that I see it as the one pillar holding up all of DeFi, and I don't want that, right? Like, I don't want this whole decentralized system to rest upon one thing, especially something that is centralized. I would like to see some other option be built out. So in the future, like, if USDC were to go down for whatever reason, again, I think it would be not likely, but out of some crazy alternate future, which we see can happen, unfortunately, right? Like, I do want there to be another option where something like DAI is still mostly backed by USDC. Frax has, I love you guys, but a lot of USDC backing, which again isn't a bad thing, but like it's not necessarily a true alternative, if that makes sense.
There is, of course, some USDC backing, but I have to correct you. So the majority of backing is,
please do.
So like, this is a whole misconception, wrapped USDC. It's not like DAI, where DAI you have the PSM, and so you just have 3 billion USDC sitting in a smart contract. And so like Circle in theory could blacklist that smart contract. With Frax, what it is you have the USDC, and that's deployed across a plethora of strategies via the AMOs. And so the most popular, does that make sense so far? Do you need do you know what an AMO is? Yeah. So the most popular, largest AMO is the Curve AMO. And so most of the USDC is in the form of Curve LP tokens. So it's really the Curve LP tokens that are backing Frax. It's not the USDC. So if Circle were to like blacklist, Frax, they would have to blacklist Circle. And then at that point, DeFi would have much bigger problems. So I like to say, like, it's not that Frax is backed by USDC. Frax is backed by DeFi. It's backed by the AMOs. It's backed by Curve, Uniswap, Aave. Now, like, Frax's own native primitives. So you have FraxLend, FraxSwap. It's backed by DeFi. Yeah. That's the way I would think about it. And so,
I do like that. But I guess in terms of this specific example, like if USDC were still to go to zero,
then Frax
I'm saying it wouldn't be like another alternative, right? Like I could use
and then everything's
Frax
fucked
instead of Z. That's just what I'm saying. Like we can't have that for like long term, in my opinion.
The thing is like right now, like when it comes to building a stablecoin, you have design choices in the stablecoin trilemma. And so like in order for stablecoins to scale properly, like the way to do it right now is to add something like USDC as collateral. But like in the future, that could be different. Something that could happen is like ETH reaches like global economy market cap. You can have it backed by ETH, or something like that. But for right now, like if you want to build like the most useful stablecoin, something that it depends what the goals of your stablecoin are. Like Frax's end game is to be the central bank of DeFi. How is it going to do that? Emulate a central bank. Have the AMOs like OMOs. Go for the Fed master account. Go for the Fed master account. And so Frax just has like different there's no right way to build a stablecoin. The right way to build a stablecoin is that it remains pegged to $1. As long as it's that, boom, you have your stablecoin. It's just like a matter is like as like a user, like what you're looking for in a stablecoin. Like at the end of the day, people want to go back to a stablecoin that's pegged and like that stays pegged. Like there of course there are decentralized alternatives and like like Rye and LUSD, but like you can't really scale those. And like LUSD, like God bless it, but it can't maintain its peg. It's always like it's a floating peg, which is fine. And like it's like a worthy alternative for those who like have those concerns. And I feel like that concern is like romanticized a lot, and for good reason. But at like the end of the day, like you can think like in practical terms and idealist terms, and there's really no right or wrong answer. It's just like a matter of like what are the numbers at the end of the day. What the name of the game is like who has like the most stable coins in circulation, and right now it's like Tether and USDC, and then you have BUSD, DAI, and Frax. And so it's a game of
100%. And I do see it as like a really big and long-term problem, like that needs to be addressed and understood and built out over time, because I 100% agree with you right now. Like you do have limited options in being able to build out a stable coin that scales and that's pegged and that works correctly. I just think long-term, it's something that we should keep experimenting on and try and find alternatives. That's my hope.
I agree. And like, I feel like stable coins like Frax and DAI, they give a buffer for that experimentation to happen. Because if you had because they're in this middle ground. And so, because if you just had like Tether and USDC and then like LUSD and Rye, their market cap would be completely eaten by the centralized one. And even if they were to figure out a solution, it would be very hard, if at all, for a way to catch up. So Frax and DAI actually play this purpose of like allowing for this experimentation to happen.
I like that. Kiet, what's your thoughts on this stablecoin debacle? Give us the answers. I see you pondering over there. You're like, oh, I already know the answer.
No, not at all. I may have a smooth brain question to ask the both of you, since all three of us here are proclaimed smooth brainers. Now, is it more important for the stablecoin to have the one-to-one collateral backing? Or is it more important for the stable coin to have the liquidity for you to exit in case there is a bank run? Like, if you had to pick one of those to be priority number one? Do you prioritize collateral so that it's 1-to-1 at all times and you can just redeem? Or do you prioritize liquidity that even if there were a bank run of everybody, it's still 1-to-1?
I have an answer to this,
Still
but
peg.
Rogue, if you want to go,
Yeah.
Rogue, if you want to go first, you can.
Wait, if it's 1-to-1 backed, wouldn't you still be able to redeem 1-to-1? Like, wouldn't you able to, if there was a bank run, wouldn't you still be able
So
to?
so right now with Frax, for example, Frax is about like 93% collateralized.
Right.
But on the liquidity front, like it's actually impossible for you to break the peg because of the outstanding number of Frax that is not controlled by the Frax protocol. So if everybody out there who held Frax ran into the curve pool and just swapped everything, the peg won't break because Frax has enough a protocol own liquidity to absorb all of that. Right. So
Yeah, so
I'm
it's like, the first backstop is the liquidity in the curve pool, and like the backstop of last resort is the 1-to-1 collateral. So to answer your question, I think it's the 1-to-1 redeemability is the most important thing. Like that is the basis of a stablecoin. And then the next thing is liquidity. Both vital and important, but in terms of order of importance, that's the basis of everything. Even like before stablecoins and crypto and all this stuff, like you wanted your dollars to be 1-to-1 redeemable with gold, and you want this has been played out through time, basically.
I think 1-to-1, but I'm going to take a different angle. I think because early on to build the psychological support of knowing that the peg is always there, I think it's important. And I think Frax has done a really good job actually of kind of proving me wrong there though, which is awesome. But I do agree at the end of the day, like that 1-to-1 is that's what I would prefer in my stable coin. But I mean, again, I think Frax is kind of proving me wrong in some ways, and the liquidity is working on what you guys are doing and having that extra capital efficiency. So I don't know. Y'all are smarter building a stable coin than me, so don't listen to my smooth brain takes.
No, not at all, not at all. I love to hear these thoughts from you because for me, like I'm actually more of the liquidity school of thought because I'm like
Liquidity
as long
school of
as
thought.
because then like if it can't break, like if the peg, for example, let's say it's back 1-to-1, but there's like no liquidity on this stable coin, and anytime somebody trades in and out of it, there's massive slippage. And the only way for someone to kind of arbit back to the peg is to buy it and redeem it for the underlying collateral, and then et cetera, et cetera. Like I think that is so kind of inefficient, and it sounds more like a bug than a feature.
Yeah, that's fair. Like if there's liquidity problems, like it's not going to
I
work.
guess you're right. Like liquidity is the most important thing. I was just like going about it from like, the order of effects of like, what would happen like for Frax if like liquidity first, and then if there's no liquidity, which is impossible. But if it was possible, like it'd be redeemable. But like liquidity, water is life, literally. That's what I say.
And Dave said this thing that just kind of blew my mind on like 2 pods ago, where he was like, USDC is the largest RWA on chain, and like that alone, I was like, wow, that is so fucking true. That's literally the first real world asset on chain. And like when people talk, when people are like, there's no product market fit for real world assets on chain, like now I just point them to the market cap. There's 50 billion reasons why there's product market fit for real world asset on chain.
At least we pray they're real world assets.
right. I mean, well,
and everyone,
no, for sure.
But
I
that
agree.
leads me to
that's well said.
Yeah, that leads me to my question of like, what are your thoughts on RWA and its space in DeFi?
I just went to a like crypto what is it called, like a get together type thing, and they talked about real estate on chain and the future of that. I actually think that would be interesting just because it'd create more liquidity around real estate. Like if I can put my house into Aave and then like borrow against it, borrow like USDC or something against it, that would be super interesting. And it just creates more ease of liquidity or being able to take out loans uh, for a house or something using that as collateral instead of like not wanting to do like a Wells Fargo like 7% right now. That's really cool. But in terms of, I think there's a lot of just idealism around real world assets on chain that I don't see coming in the near future, that I'm not like super hyped about. I mean, I think it was like a day one thing where everyone was trying to do a, was it ICO around like,
Mhm.
I'm going to bring paper clips on chain, or whatever.
My favorite
And
was
like,
Gentacoin and pothole down.
yeah.
Oh my god.
And like I'm bearish on like 99% of them, honestly. But I think the things that do come on chain and do work will be awesome and do offer liquidity options that are kind of necessary and awesome. And I think like cars and houses would be cool if we could figure that out. Just because I fucking hate traditional finance. Like I went to get a car and they made me put 50% down and I had to, and my fucking rate is 7%. This is when rates were like at 2%. All
Wow.
because I hadn't leased a car before, even though I showed them like hella proof of income, hella money, like everything. I have an excellent credit score, all because I bought my first car instead of leasing it, right? And like that's basically just like a fuck you, right? Like there's no reason for that. They're just like, hey, we can do this thing, so here you go. We're gonna charge you out the ass because you didn't meet these like random requirements that we just arbitrarily created, or whatever. Even though you meet every other requirement in all the best ways. So I think having options around those important real world assets, that's exciting to me. How we're gonna build that out, I'm not sure. Uh, a lot of experimentation around that might be scary. Like, I don't want to lose my house in an Aave hack or something, or like a hack. Like, people are losing apes. You don't want to lose your house because, you have your keys on chain. So I think there's potential there, but I'm wary and bearish on a lot of it. But, the fun thing about the space is there are smart people that are going to figure out ways to do this stuff, and when it comes through, it'll be cool. What do you guys think?
I mean, I feel like real world assets, popular buzz term. I was really big into it. I was really hyping up BridgeFi during the first half of the year, so I call that connecting with the real world on chain.
Is that like bridges on chain? Like I could buy the George Washington Bridge?
Yeah. Hey, I got a bridge to sell you. You want a deal? I'm just kidding. So like bridge, like connecting, like like whether it's real estate or whether it's cross border exchange, whether it's P2P loan, like different types of loans, like done in the real world, like short term, medium term credit loans. Like there are opportunities where like there needs like there should be like a pool of capital that's like hard to get, but because of like how the real world works with like blackout dates and this and that. But since the chain's on 24/7, like those pools are always available, so that gives like a lot of bridge fi opportunity. The second half of the year, I became like less bullish on it for now. I'm bullish on it long term, bridge fi, but like I don't think it's going to happen immediately. And I really like the way Frax is going about it. It's like we're going to prioritize one real world asset, and that real world asset is getting a Fed master account and bringing that yield on chain. I think that's especially with their model of like trying to be the central bank of DeFi, that's a really way of going about it. So that's kind of like my thoughts about it. I'm still like living on chain and looking for opportunities on chain. And I was going to ask you like what you think. And after this, I want to go into real yield on chain and get your guys' thoughts on that.
So when I think of art, what you guys talked about the houses, I just in my mind just went to like, imagine people could flip houses like they flip NFTs on OpenSea. and it's just that easy. Like there's no 90-day escrow waiting, like no,
Yeah.
like everything is all cash. You just literally just flip houses. Like
on
that's
a like pseudo AMM too.
Oh
yeah,
my
That'd be super
God.
right. Like
interesting.
Oh, houses
and
on zero.
like wouldn't that be crazy to think about? But like, hey, houses in this neighborhood is gonna be all like NFT-fied, and then you could literally just flip it on OpenSea casually, as long as you can pay cash for it, and like or you can even finance it, right? There's a ton of like NFT financing, like Astaria, whom we just had on previously, and for me, I think real world assets that are alternative real world assets without the regulatory overhang will probably be the first thing to come on chain, right? Like, I think fine art and things of that nature is definitely going to be the first avenue to get on chain before any of these like more regulated real world assets would. That's my
Yeah,
take.
like those are smaller the better. I mean, they're still big. Don't get me wrong, but like less complicated. Like you said, like
Yeah.
less like
Yeah.
No regulatory overhang. That's gonna be the
Right.
thing that
Right.
kills any real world assets to come on chain.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of just any assets, let's move the conversation a bit from real world to real yield. What are your guys' thoughts on the real yield narrative that has come about over since the summer? Bro, go ahead.
So define that for me. Like, what do you consider that, or like,
I
how do
consider
you
it,
see that?
or it's fun. I was actually just thinking about it before the interview. Like real yield on chain, where does it come from? And before this was even, it's always existed. And where it came from on chain, it's just speculation. It's just been people like
Right.
levering up. That's where the yield came from throughout the
Oh yeah.
entire bull cycle. And it happened in the bull cycle. And like, I guess like the foundation of real yield was the GPTC trade, like people just levering up on that.
Hmm.
And then it's just kind of like trickling down to all of DeFi and like letting all these games being played. And it came at a time when like interest rates in the real world were really low, and so you had these opportunities on chain. So everybody was like aping in, had money, and like there everything was flowing. But now it has like switched, and now the interest rates in the real world are higher. The yields are lower on chain because people are speculating less. The place where like real yield is, has the spotlight is on GMX or GLP. And GLP, GMX is, it's a speculation platform. It's a derivatives platform. So people are just speculating on that. And now GLP is just becoming a money Lego. And now everybody's like building on top of it, whether it's like, using it as collateral investor or people building delta neutral strategies. So the thing with real yield is like, I think it needs to like grow out of, for it to be sustainable, it needs to like grow out of just being based on speculation because there's always inherent risk in speculation. I mean, it's like, it's nice to like have like the real yield and it's like organic on chain, but like, is it sustainable yield? Like, I mean, with, for example, with like like it's for Umami that when they came out with their first like delta neutral vault, they had to shut it down because it wasn't working. So like they're coming out with their V2 vault and like, I'm sure it's going to be improved, but like, I wonder like how, like what will need to be done to make like real yield sustainable on chain? Like how can we like harness the power of like speculation and like kind of like bring it down so we can have sustainable yield for all? And I was really toying with that before this interview. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually fully agree with you. One of our partners, Risk Finance, is doing some really interesting stuff around like
Mm.
delta neutral yield with like option strategies, and they're just
Mm,
fucking gigabrains over there. But they have a really interesting vault around like a delta neutral type strategy. This they call it uncorrelated yield, which I
mm,
think I agree with you. Like in the future, we do need more uncorrelated yield strategies, whether we're in a bull or a bear, right? Because everything is based upon speculation right now in crypto. Like there's so much liquidity that in a bull market, it's awesome to just have easy access to liquidity for speculation, and yet we've seen in the bear like that all disappears when volume is down, when price is down,
yeah,
and
exactly.
so
Yeah.
I think there has to be more tie-ins to other use cases for yield, or more security maybe around even just price, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about, even if I wanted to like take out an Aave loan against my ETH because because it's so cheap right now, it's a little scary because ETH could still go down like another 50%,
Yeah.
like we've seen it happen before, whereas like on chain during the bull market, everyone's like, okay, it could set my collateralization factor like fucking, 75% or some, some
Hmm.
super high shit. And
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden everyone's getting liquidated left and right. And it's like, that doesn't make it useful for more real world cases, right? Where if you're trying to buy a car with, USDC you borrowed or something, like, you don't want a 30% move to liquidate you, and then you're
Mm.
shit out of luck with a car or something, right? So I think uh, more security, and then more tie-ins to other aspects of revenue besides just, like you're saying, speculation, which most of it is built on now.
Yeah.
Even like a GMX and that type of scenario where it is just derivative speculation, right? And just
Mm-hmm.
taking like other sides of the trade or whatever. So it it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I think my suspicion is once we go back into a bull, everything will go right back up, and everyone will forget that this
Yeah.
shit ever happened, and be like,
Every
oh, yield is
time.
back. Yay. Yeah.
Every time.
And it's like, we
This
don't have
time
to
is
change
different.
anything. Hmm.
Yeah. I was gonna. Yeah.
And it's again, but like even in that scenario, if we do a super cycle, so to speak, right? Like a cycle that we don't have another giant bear market in the next like 10 years, and it's more of a slow grind up or whatever, it's not going to be 10% yields on Aave, for that whole entire time or anything like that. Like, that's just not how it works. We're just in such a high volume kind of bull market, a lot of narrative built. So, unfortunately, I don't think it's a space where a lot of people are actually going to care to build out what might be needed when the bull is back on. But there are some smart people doing interesting things like Risk, like some of these other protocols. So
Yeah.
that's
I
what I
was in.
see.
I was gonna say. Actually, Kate. What do you think of real yield? I
I
had one more thing to say,
I
but I
think
want you to
yeah,
go.
the realest yield is going to be
Yeah.
the ETH staking yield. That's
Oh,
that.
there we
I
go.
thought you were going to say the friends we made along the way, but yes, you're right about the staking
Yeah.
yield. Yeah,
I mean, both of
100%.
Yeah.
them are highly sustainable. Both those yields are highly
Both highly
sustainable.
Yeah.
yeah,
You know,
One's
absolutely.
tangible, one's intangible.
Yeah, yeah, down on P&L, but up on friends. Up on
Yeah.
friends, Matt, big ups. But I mean,
Yeah.
that's where I think the real yield, like it starts becoming scary, is when if the native base asset's going to give you like 6-7%, and it's going to obviously
Mm.
cost you more to borrow that. And if people wanted to
Yeah.
like um, leverage or short ETH, like it's going to be extremely expensive to short ETH. Like you're gonna have to pay that X staking yield plus an interest rate on top of that. So I think it's going to be very it's going to shake up DeFi once that gets way more incorporated.
Yeah.
I like that.
I was gonna say, yeah, I agree. Like the realest yield is the LSD ETH staking yield, and I also was gonna add Uni V3, the concentrated liquidity yields,
Mhm.
especially from the blue chip pairs like ETH USDC, also from like exotic pairs that are 1% that just launched. Like that is real yield. We can't deny. Like those are like
Okay,
fees.
but wait.
Yeah.
A lot of uni pool, like most uni LPs, like don't make money though.
I'm just talking about the fees. I'm not talking about impermanent
Oh,
loss.
okay,
Oh
okay, I
yeah.
got you,
In
I
terms
got
of
you.
like in terms of like just fees, like, and if you know what you're doing and you do it right, like you can make money. But yes, like most LPs are at a loss, and that is a problem because there aren't proper hedging strategies yet for uni LPs. But there's like a bunch of new things coming out. I think there's stuff like Gamma Swap. There's stuff like Panoptic. Like there's stuff out there.
Croc swap.
Croc swap, yeah. Crocs, yeah.
I'm really excited for Croc swap. Like
Yeah.
really excited.
Aren't they like they are like the base layer, like the node layer of Bearer chain. Like it's just built into the chain. Like
Yeah,
right?
FrxSwap is going to be heavily integrated into Bera. Yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be exciting to see. I'm excited. Does CrocSwap launch, or when are they launching?
They haven't launched yet. No announcement as to a concrete launch date yet.
Mm.
I definitely like this shift that we have going from, instead of food farms, is now animal farms. We have cow swap, we have croc swap, we have Barachain.
We're
like
just
Yeah,
I,
building up the agriculture, you know. We're
yeah.
basically cavemen,
We're
just
farm.
redoing that whole
Yeah,
thing. Yeah,
we're
we
we're,
start
domest-
with
we're domesticating animals now. Yeah,
exactly,
that's
exactly.
too funny. That's too funny.
yeah. Um, I wanted to bring it more into actually, I want to bring it more into like the current state of the market for builders, because we all are builders at heart. What do you think, like, for being a builder right now, like at this stage, like bear times, like what do you think of like the current state, and what do you think builders should focus on? Like, what would be your advice to builders right now?
Yeah, so we're talking to a lot of our partner protocols who are coming out now or coming out soon, and I think the game has changed in the bear, in some ways for better, some ways for worse. Like in the bull, the game was throw a token out kind of as soon as possible, set up this kind of LP, make sure you have like this and this and all these areas of speculation and whatever. And now we're telling a lot of our builders, like, don't release a token now. There's unless it's integral to what you're trying to do, and you have like very specific ways in which it's going to help the protocol and is need for the protocol and is going to accrue value. Like, why would you release it now? There's really no need. It's going to be a down only chart, and like that doesn't help anyone really. And so we're also saying, like, hey, this is an opportunity where you have time. In the bull market, people are just spamming Discord, 24 fucking 7, like when protocol, when release, when
When
this, when
token.
that, when token, just, like, I want to ape all this money in, right? There's an opportunity now to take the time in building whatever you're building. Make sure it's tested. You can start when protocols are releasing, they're not, super hyped right now on the front page of everyone's Twitter, getting like a billion degens, trying to jump in. It's like you can start with capped farms on more experimental things to like make sure that the safety is there, right? To make sure the functionality is there, to, collect data on how things should be built. Like, there's an opportunity here where, because the level of attention isn't as focused and as it was in the bull market, like you're allowed to build in the bear market and
Mm-hmm.
set the foundation. And if you can build a really strong foundation over the next year, where when year and hopefully the bull, turns back up in the next year or two, whatever, if that foundation is there and people are starting to come back again, and you're like, hey, look at this wide range of products we offer that are working, that we know are safe, that we've thoroughly built out, we've built out with partnered protocols, that we have all these integrations now. And that's really exciting, because you don't have all the pressure, right? Or all the expectations, or the weight of having $1 billion day one in this new experiment you're trying. And yet now you can build out slowly the way you want to. You can craft the narrative of what you're trying to do, why you're trying to do it. And so you can kind of take your time with things, and then when the time is right, like, release a token that has the best tokenomics, right? Really, I think this is a new time to think out tokenomics models, because we've seen a lot of them are not functioning the way people hope they would. And build out a smart tokenomics model, and release it when the time is right, not when you feel like the whole community is badgering you
Yeah.
for it.
It's funny, like you say that it's really a matter of timing more than anything. With Frax, especially, like observe, they've been building since like 2019. Like the stable having an algorithmic decentralized stablecoin is not a new idea. You had Basis Cash like way back in the Basis way back in the day and whatnot, but it was really like not the right time when it was like released, when it was like
Mm,
planning in 2018, 2019, it was only when Curve came out. It was only there was an option on chain to have stable swaps and always like have the
right.
liquidity for one-to-one swaps that it became possible for decentralized stablecoins to exist. And that was the time for Frax to be released. And that's how you had like the whole like first generation of stablecoins with ESD, DSD, basis cash,
Mm-hmm.
and everything. That was a crazy time. I actually was like checked out of crypto. I was on hiatus at that time, but yeah, so I missed all the action. But just like being observing kind of from the sidelines, it was like everybody had their first whiff of that kind of type of DeFi build, that kind
So
of
Rogue.
Hanzu. Yeah.
Mhm. So I wanted to ask Rogue, like, what successful tokenomics that you've seen this last cycle that you kind of hope to see more iterations on?
Ooh, that's a good question.
That is a good question.
Um, I think we actually just did V1 of tokenomics, right? And I think we're going to need to like rebuild the blueprint in a lot of ways for V2. I think the infinite print tokenomics model isn't working, and I think we figured that out, right? I think the VE tokenomics model wasn't the like savior that everyone wanted it to be. Uh, I th- I think tokenomics is going to be a really interesting area to look at. And this is the time to do it, right? Like the bull market is not. It's easy to do tokenomics in the bull
Yeah,
market,
because
right?
everything's just up.
You press click, you click and you release token, and that's it. You don't really need to do anything because number goes up. But I think there are opportunities. Like I do think the GMX, their two token model is interesting in terms of being able to offer yield, right? Like in there are people who saying it's not as 100%. Well, it's sustainable, but maybe not 100% safer. Like there are people who are saying that. I'm not trying to speculate on that or whatever, but I do think there are going to need to be actual ways in which tokens accrue value, in which they have meaning and purpose for a protocol, not just like a speculative vehicle, right? Because while that's fun in the bull market, right? We can all buy something that has a good narrative and sell it when the tension leaves it, right? That's not great for the actual protocol. And it hurts a protocol where if people see a chart and it's down 98%, they might think, okay, this is a rug, this is a Ponzi, when in reality, the protocol itself might be incredibly good and functioning well, right? It's just a reflection of the tokenomics model, right? There's no actual correlation between token price and how well the protocol is working. And so I think it's harmful. It can be harmful when people see a chart that looks like, the Burj Khalifa and the protocol is doing well, right? Where we want a tokenomics model that's more sustainable, that accrues value to holders. I want to see more experimentation around governance and trying to build governance models that actually reward good participants, not just whoever can buy the most at the time and to push a vote or to do whatever just happens to be an early bag holder or whatever. So I want to see more experimentation on both sides of the token as to like value accrual, use cases, and also governance, so that it really supports each holder and whatever their focus is, right?
Are there any governance models you do like right now?
That's a good question. I haven't been diving too deep into like a lot of the newest changes to some of the protocols that are probably experimenting the most, but I mean I like what kind of Parallel is doing, where they have a echelon, which is a committee of like people that are voted in by the community that really know their shit and are smart, but they also have token voting and governance models where that users can vote, and so it's decentralized in that way. And so like there's kind of a balance between like having the experts who know their shit, but who are elected, and also a decentralization aspect to it. But I would like to see more experimentation around like maybe NFTs that give you a voting power boost because you're a great community member, or some sort of like rewards you get for being active and creating forums and like doing whatever. So I think there's a lot of people trying a lot of different things right now, and I'm not sure. I think we haven't reached what it can look like yet.
We're at the beginning stages of both tokenomics economically and also governance from a political perspective when it comes to our protocols.
Yeah, and not in a bad way, right? Like it just means we have more to try out, and that's exciting. That's cool.
Yeah, for sure. And before the pod, you mentioned to us you had some Yunt alpha you wanted to share. So me and Kit are both at the edge of our seat. We're curious, like, what is this alpha that you have for us?
So we were talking about content earlier on, and that's something that's always been super important at Yunt. Is we believe in this shit, and we're always trying to your point, like give good narratives, tell the story of crypto, make it easy for people to understand, make it easy for people to get involved who want to. And so we've been building for maybe a year now, a long time now. We've been building out a website. We're calling it The Pond. And it's basically, we're building it as a one-stop shop for all things crypto information. So it's going to have the most basic how-to articles on how to set up a MetaMask, how to use a DEX to swap that you can send to your normie friend who wants to get involved, to the most degen shit of like in-depth articles written by some of the smartest people in the space as to like, how liquidity works on DEXs, or more philosophical stuff. Like I wrote a piece on the value of anonymity in this space, right? And so we're trying to build this one-stop shop where we're inviting all content creators, all writers, anyone who loves the space and has something to say. And we want it to be a place for all sorts of information to come together in one spot, so that at every level you can go from beginner to expert and read all different perspectives, learn all different aspects of crypto. And we're hoping to be able to monetize it in the future so we can pay creators, that we can bring in really talented people to help share the vision as to what we're doing here. And we're close to release on that. That should be in the next few weeks. And we're super excited. We're going to have some awesome content to roll out right when that starts. And, we're really looking forward to that. And it's something that's important to us because, like you're saying, we're content creators. We love sharing the vision here, and it's exciting for us. So thank you for letting me share some of that alfalfa.
Alpha.
We love
yeah.
alfalfa. We love it.
Yeah.
We love it. And Rogue, let me ask you, what made you decide to cast like or the Yunt guys together cast a wide net to cover both beginner and super expert degen versus like, one or the other?
Yeah, so there is a lot of great content in this space, but we've found it to be somewhat dispersed, and that could be intimidating for both the beginner and the expert, right? Where you're kind of flipping back and forth. You're always looking for a new newsletter or sign up for a new thing, and we'd like the idea of, we might not cover everything, but we're going to have a broad scope so that if you want to go from beginner to expert, you can stay here and read articles every step of the way, or listen to the podcast, or do this or do that. And so we want it to be a one-stop shop for like really all the important crypto needs of whatever side of the user. And I think that's also exciting from a content creator perspective, where if this is the one location where most people come to read about crypto, then I want to publish my stuff on there, right? And so that also draws in some of the best creators in the space. So it's kind of like a symbiotic relationship, we're hoping, where we get to publish some of the best stuff for our readers, and so they can full stack learn about crypto, and then writers will want to come and get their stuff published here because then it gets seen by a lot of eyes, and they know that there'll always be people coming to it.
This reminds me of a Web3 Hacker Noon, because Hacker Noon hasn't. Are you familiar with Hacker Noon at all?
I'm not super familiar, but
Kiet, are you familiar with Hacker Noon?
I've heard of them, and I've read some articles, but not too familiar.
Yeah, I would describe them as like a tech website, but they have like a lot of their content community sourced, and they focus on a lot of things, whether it's like how to code or like what it's like running like an online business, like a writing shop, or like I used to write articles like way back in the day, like covering like trending topics on what Everpedia when I worked on that, and so like just had like a plethora of content. Beginner content, cultural content, current event content, advanced content, and like the fact that it's community generated, like you were saying, it kind of reminds me of that. Like, but this is like specifically for crypto.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we at Yunt, we've already been writing articles, so we're super excited to share that. But we want this to be collaborative, and we hope we can then build sponsors out more, so we can really pay some of these amazing content creators that we have in the space. And we're looking to really build it out as fun as possible, and it's going to be a pretty website too, which I'm really excited about. We got some good designers and everything, and it's going to have some fun pond degen frog imagery and all that. So I think it'll just be like a fun place to get your crypto news, to read about the newest shit. And also we wanted a place to like send friends who are interested, because I think it isn't easy for a lot of people to get started, right? Like, okay, maybe setting up a MetaMask, you want to go to this website, or you want to learn how to swap a DEX. Now you got to go to YouTube. Okay, now you want to learn safety protocols. You got to go read this Twitter thread, right? Like, it's just so scattered, and we're trying to bring it all under one roof for kind of everyone's benefit, and we're hoping people enjoy it. And yeah, that's the kind of vision.
Hell yeah.
Makes a ton of sense. I would love to send my normies friends there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, also, like, I feel like there could be great synergy between that and Flywheel, right? We could easily plug in and be like the stablecoin corner for you guys and kind of help educate people on
super
that,
advanced esoteric. Yeah.
I like it.
It's like the subreddit.
Yeah. I mean, but yeah, like that's, I think the beauty of it, right? Is like the guys who know all the basics and know maybe the more technical aspects about that can write about that. And then the guys like you who are in the like super niche, but really important aspect of like the stable coins and knowing that in depth. But you guys love talking about it. You guys love sharing it, and you guys can come here and do that as well, right? Like I love the collaborative nature and how we can kind of build that out. So y'all are always welcome. You know that. Y'all live in my heart. So
let's go.
Yes, baby. Composability, content composability right here.
Hey, there it is.
The Pond Yunt Flywheel Alliance.
Yeah, that's too powerful.
Yeah.
Too powerful.
Watch out.
The Pond. Where did the name The Pond come from?
We just always love like degen frogs, just being a frog. And we like, it's going to go from beginner where it's like you're a tadpole, and then you're immediate, you're like a middle frog. And then you grow up and you're like the fucking degen frog sitting on the rock,
the frog king.
Stroking your beard. Yeah, the degen frog king. And so we just, and it's just like fun imagery. I don't know. We're fucking smooth brains. So
yeah. So, speaking of like degen and culture stuff, I want to get into like culture a bit more. And something I like to always like ask our guests is like, when it comes to DeFi evolving and growing up, like, do you think DeFi needs to like grow up a bit, or do you think DeFi should just stay close to its degen roots?
Ooh, that's an interesting question.
I get different answers. Yeah, I get different answers, so I always like asking it.
Man, I love the atmosphere we have, honestly, because what I love about crypto, and one of the things that keeps me here, is I think there's so many awesome people here. And for all the scammers, there's I think like twice as many good people who love seeing each other win, who do want to build out something better for the future, and who love to fuck around on Twitter and like make jokes and have this lighthearted attitude. And I think that's something that I really enjoyed, where like in a TradFi, right? In a bear market, everything's so serious and blah 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 blah, and it feels so hard, and everyone's like cutthroat. Where in crypto, when everyone's losing money, everyone's losing money, but like in a way where it's like we all feel down bad. We're all here to help each other. We're all here to make jokes and try and brighten the day when needed, but we also take it seriously and don't fuck around when it comes to scammers, and call them out for shit when it needs to be done. So I like the ecosystem here. I do think there are things that do need to be changed, like around we got to be more inclusive of, like, I know there are women in the space that don't always feel super comfortable because of stuff like that's not what I love. We need to be kind of better about that sort of stuff, but overall,
Mm-hmm.
like, I think if we can keep a wholehearted, like lighthearted,
Yeah.
caring attitude, and treat each other as friends, and know that we are kind of really all in this together. Um, I, I think it's for the best. There's so much
Yeah.
seriousness in the world. I'm not sure we need to turn this into TradFi and be like, blah, 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 whatever.
I
That's
think like
exactly how TradFi sounds.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
100%.
the most important thing you said there is like we're all in this together, and like we all have our own like kind of like crews
Yeah.
and clicks and whatnot. Like you have Yunt Capital, we have like Flywheel Frax, there are other ones and whatnot. But at like the end of the day, like we all come together when like shit really hits the fan. Like something I really love about the space is, let's say there's like a vulnerability or a hack. Like devs will literally like drop everything, and like even if they're a
Yeah.
competitor or something, they were like go help. Like what I remember with like Sushi, they had like a potential vulnerability, and Sam CC Sun from Paradigm found it. Invested in Uniswap, blah blah blah, and like they went and they knew like for the good of the space, it was like our time to like come together to like fix this and make sure everything's safe. And like the fact like people are there to help because they know like that could happen to them one day, and like when that happens to them, like you want somebody in your corner to help you out as well. And
Mhm.
so like especially in these early
For
days,
sure.
it's like really important that we all stick together and have each other's backs.
Yeah, fully agree. That sense of community, I think if we could keep that for as long as possible, that's for our
Mm-hmm.
benefit. Like if we're building out finance, having a sense of community, having a sense of what's best for you is best for me as well. I think that's really important, just in all of life, but
Mhm.
this as well. So yeah, fully agree.
Yeah. What do you think, Kit?
Got it. So you guys are thinking, since we're essentially redefining finance, we should also redefine the culture of finance, right?
Yeah.
From TradFi, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
where anonymity is not even questioned. Like you're not having a camera on, and the free flowing of ideas is commonplace. And that's kind of where we are. I just find it, I'm torn because obviously I like our corner of the internet, but if we want billions of people to use this, I don't know if billions of people like this, anime PFP, or these memes, or like, I don't know
I
if our
think
culture can hit mainstream. Is,
I
is
think
my
it's
If it can
biggest
already
point.
scale.
I think it's
If
already
it can scale, yeah.
I think it's already expanding. Like the term Web3 itself is bigger than DeFi and crypto. Like yeah, we have our corner
Yeah,
of the internet, and like I think we're kind of
Sure.
like a backbone with our values. Where like we're like a very a denominator in that. But there's also like stuff like Bored Apes and like stuff like more mainstream stuff out there that's like I wouldn't say or NFTs. Like NFTs are attracting or like the top of the funnel of attracting more common like regular folk into Web3, quote unquote. And that's like complete NFT people have like completely different like priorities and values than like let's say DeFi people and like even like Bitcoin people, like the difference of
Mhm.
values between like Bitcoin and Ethereum people and whatnot. So like there's going to be constant like evolution and splitting and forking and this and that. But it's like a matter of like, where do we like hold strong when like shit hits the fan, and like whatever our values are when shit hits the fan.
Yeah, I agree
Yeah,
with that. I
yeah,
like that.
yeah. Just ranting off. uh, yeah.
Listen, I'm gonna be Rogue Itachi either way, so like it or not. Sorry.
Yeah.
Hey, like it or not.
I'm gonna be DeFi Dave, no matter what. Whether I get so
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I feel you guys. I mean, I get it. I love, like I said, I love our corner of the internet. My only concern is like, I don't know if our culture can scale exactly like Jan said it so
Yeah,
eloquently.
it's like
Definitely.
does the tech become its users, or do the users become its tech? Like, because like people had, it's funny, like if you like look at like MySpace when it first started, like it had everyone learning HTML, like guys, girls, and like everybody just
Oh,
wanted to like
right.
check out their profiles, and like people had to like get like a certain level of skill in order to participate. And that definitely, like, the medium is the message, so like you had to like that, using that like shaped you and shaped your interactions and shaped how you showed yourself in the world in MySpace with like HTML
Mm-hmm.
profiles. And then like once like other social media like Facebook and Instagram came along, and it wasn't as like technologically, intensive to like build a profile. You could just like upload photos, this and that. It's a lot easier. Kind of like it changed the culture a bit for sure. And then like you look at like Instagram culture as a whole, and then you have TikTok and TikTok culture as a whole. Like the medium is the message, and it like shapes how like you present yourself and how you interact within like a certain system. Now with you apply that to crypto, like right now you have like signing in with MetaMask and signing transactions with like wallets and stuff. And I think like if you're like thinking about next cycle as it comes along, and how like if we want like what is it going to take for like more normies and regular people, it's probably going to come to like wallets and UI, and that's going to like interact how like Web3 evolves as a whole. It's like what wallets is going to look like, because like right now like it's MetaMask is like quite common, but like what's it going to like look like in the future? Like I don't expect it, especially after the privacy concerns, to be like the de facto lingua franca. It's probably going to be something else. I don't know what that looks like, but I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Kit, you want to start?
No, you go, bro. I'm thinking of something else.
You're the guest. Let's go, Rogue. Yeah.
It's a really, really good idea and interesting. I think in some ways, I think the Anon culture offers a sort of reprieve from a lot of the internet as it is now, where like Instagram and TikTok and Twitter are so connected to identity, and that could get exhausting in a way, right? Where you're always feeling like you have to present some sort of identity to others, where you always have to be seen in a certain light or be a certain person, where the kind of funness of anonymity is you get to try out a different identity. You get to speak in a way, in a new way. You get to try out different jokes. You get to be seen by others freshly. And I think some part of that does resonate with people and will be interesting. I think the technology and the users, I think go hand in hand right now, and that you do have to have a certain level of acumen to use the DeFi protocols to get into the trenches there. But in the future, like you're saying, if we do want normies to adopt it, it needs to be easier. It needs to be safer. There needs to be different custody options, right? If my mom and dad want to use it, they barely know how to use the fucking like TV remote. They're not going to be able to use MetaMask. But if there is something that's as easy as like a Google or Chase.com for them to use funds, then that kind of changes the game. So it's interesting to think about, and there's going to need to be, I think, levels to kind of all of it, where if you do want to be a super degen and have all these direct wallet access and full custody and all that, like that's great. And if you want something easier, that has to exist in a safe and, holding up the most of the principles as much as possible as well.
Yeah. What do you think, Kit?
I really like what you said earlier about like, does the user become the tech, or does the tech become the user? And Hmm. I'm kind of marinating on that a bit because
Marinate.
I know what you
Let it
mean.
sizzle.
Like,
Let it sizzle.
because yeah, yeah. I'm gonna let that one sizzle
Yeah.
and ping you back on that. But
Because like
I did wanted to mhm.
I was gonna say, like, another way you can think about this is like maybe this tech isn't meant for normies. Maybe we're building like DAO to DAO or like institution to institution tech, and like this is what we're interacting with now because it's in early stages is like as individuals, but in the future because like there's a lot of risk involved. It's like it's somewhat complicated. Like we're really building like the financial infrastructure rails for the future global economy. And like that's why I see like Frax as being like this like DAO to DAO central bank, and like it can offer these financial services to DAOs that want to have a bootstrap in their token, whether it's from a liquidity standpoint or a lending standpoint, like or just have like a stable to pair to. Like there's all these different options that like Frax can have to like help tokens bootstrap, and that's just in Frax's context. There's like other protocols that offer different things, and so as this space scales from like tens of billions of TVL to trillions of TVL, it's gonna be interesting to see like how those rails evolve and who are the ones interacting directly with those rails in the end, and if they are, and like how does that like funnel down to the user itself themselves. What do you think, Rogue Tachi? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I like that. We've thought a lot about how a lot of protocols are working more at the DAO to DAO level, and I think that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense for a lot of protocols, right? Like not everything has to be user focused, and there can be behind the scenes kind of uh, builds and DeFi Legos, right? That are necessary, and I think that's all important, right? Like it doesn't have to be, oh, we need just mass retail adoption. We need every
Yeah.
retail person to get in that. Like that's not even necessary. We might just end up with a mix of like retail, degens, DAOs,
Yeah.
institutions. People who are crazy degen traders and people who want an alternative to their local bank accounts, right? Like it can be just a mix of it all. And I don't know if we have to even take over the global finance infrastructure, but like even if we're just an alternative in the next 10 years, I think would be a big win.
Mhm.
Like a strong, important, like a sustainable alternative. But yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity in different ways, and it doesn't have to just be okay. We need full retail adoption. We need full institution adoption. We need this or need that, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of people building towards different users, and that's for the best in my opinion.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on CD5 then? Right, like
CD5.
centralized in the front but DeFi in the back. Like, would that be? Do you think that's better than what we currently have in the traditional finance system?
Did you guys see the maple shit? I didn't. I
I,
saw a
I
little
I
bit of it, but
glanced
I
over
didn't
it
see
like
the full
the
thing.
unthought on starts with unthought. I don't know how to pronounce the name. Somebody defaulted on their loan.
Orthogonal.
Orthogonal.
Yeah,
Orthogonal. It defaulted on their loan.
yeah, something like that.
I
Yeah,
did
Um,
not see that. Can someone
and so
catch me
now
up?
they're like, are they kind of fucked, or what's the deal with that?
it seems like they're kind of fucked. Uh,
Wait, can someone catch me up? What happened with orthogonal and these guys?
They lost like
they,
11 million, and like Maple was using it, or it was their reserves, and they were using it for like earn program or something. I don't know. It might be a little off basis there. I just like briefly saw a thread.
Got it.
Rogues,
Oh,
Maple.
that's so painful. Okay. All right. So
Wow.
back to the CDFI. So like, I think we could cherry pick examples of why these things is gonna go bust, but like I can totally foresee a future where it's like, you have the Wells Fargo and you can open up your crypto bank account, and they obviously manage your keys, but you could theoretically check the reserves at any time because it's AKA on the blockchain, and you can access Aave within this same Wells Fargo portal, except it's obviously Aave in the back end, but they have like their front end and they like dilute the shit out of it where they only show like literally one market or something. Like I could totally see like reskinning
Yeah.
of DeFi into
I mean,
into
isn't
CDFI.
that what FTX wanted to do? but they just wanted a monopoly on it. They wanted to be like the front end to like all of DeFi. You had to go through FTX to do it. I mean, like,
I think that's part of their pitch.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
being the like good guys, the Chase
The
Bank
good
that
guys.
offers the DeFi yields. Yeah, fuck that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in the future there will be things like that. Like, I don't think everyone wants custody, and I don't think it's a great idea for everyone for all their funds, right? Like, it's a weird world if everyone has their net worth, in their house just chilling. Like, that creates
Security
new
risk.
sorts of problems. Yeah, security risks. But I do think that and ease of use and UI will attract some of that. But I think for a lot of participants, it's still going to come down to they don't want to trust other people with their money, and so I think they will exist, but I don't think those will be the de facto or the go to. At least that's kind of the hope for me.
Yeah, me too. I think they'll have their place. Like, exchanges have their place, but if we go like full circle back to the beginning of the interview, like what we want to see is like this transparent, decentralized, sovereign world that, if you want to have control of your keys and your destiny, you can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And on that note, we're reaching towards the end of our podcast, and what we like to do at the end of these things is do a little lightning round to, little lightheartedness to get to know you a little bit more.
Just to get to know you better.
Yeah, just a little bit more. Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Why am I so nervous? I'm shaking.
All right. I'll start with the first. I'll kick us off. Rogue, what was your virgin crypto experience? And sexes don't count.
My first crypto experience.
When did you first touch the chain?
Oh man, I think my first thing was like I put money into Compound, and it was like it was either Compound or Maker, and like what I paid in gas fees was like way more than I ever could have made in interest from putting it in. But it was cool to just try. And this was back when gas fees were high. And I also opened a Maker vault because the idea of Maker was so fucking cool to me. That's one of the first things that just like sold me on crypto. The idea of like liquidity in that way. And I think I opened a Maker vault, and at the time it cost me like $200 or something to put in like, to borrow like $2,000 of DAI or something, just ridiculously stupid type trade. But yeah, I think those were my first two.
Okay. And what is your favorite off-chain activity? Your favorite touch grass activity?
Ooh, touch grass activity.
Touch grass.
I love I love hitting the gym and traveling. Those are my two favorite things. The gym gets me out of the house, gets the body moving, the blood flowing. I love lifting, and traveling is just something I really enjoy. And when I have the money for it, it's always a great experience to go to new places, meet new people, and kind of tune out from the everyday life and build new habits, meet new people, that sort of thing.
Do you normally travel by yourself, or do you go with like a group?
I travel by myself a lot, honestly, and I really enjoy it. I just meet a lot of people that way. But I really like traveling by myself, honestly. That's what I do a lot of times, but I'll meet up with friends as well, stuff like that. Cool. So I like a mix.
Yeah. Cool. What is some advice you would give to yourself that's 5 years younger from you now?
5 years younger?
Yeah.
Shit, I would have been like early 20s. Honestly, it'd be like trust the process. This is gonna be a weird life, but everything you do, you're gonna learn from, and like you're gonna get to where you need to be, and just everything in life is a lesson. It doesn't have to be. Even some of the hardest things are the best lessons. So just like always keep that in mind, and know it works out at the end of the day, and you're always learning and growing. That's what I'd say.
It's really beautiful.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm okay.
Also,
I'm
fuck
calling.
bitches get money.
Okay. Fornicate with women
I got two
and acquire currency.
Buy Bitcoin.
I got too
No.
wholesome. I had to,
Yeah.
buy ETH would also. I'd definitely throw that in there too.
Okay. I mean, I'm calling an audible here. I normally don't ask this question, but I just,
Ooh.
since we're having such a good vibe
Oh.
here, what advice would you give your 5-year older self?
Ooh,
Oh.
what advice would I give my 5-year older self?
Yeah.
Dang, that's a good question. If you're in a bulla, sell.
Got
Take
it.
profits.
Take profits. I feel like that's an
Buy
echo.
low, sell high.
Buy low, sell high. Yeah.
All right. And
Advice for
the
any
last
age.
question the last question to wrap us up here is like, if you weren't in crypto, what would you be doing professionally, career wise?
Ooh, professionally. Probably writing in some form or another. That's my other like major skill, and I do enjoy it a lot, and so I still do it now, just not as much professionally. But yeah, probably some form of writing or another.
Like a book or a journalist or
Probably a book, but would
wow.
also be
Oh yeah,
cool to like
fiction. Yeah.
yeah
Wow, a full
yeah
novel.
content for things I enjoy. Yeah. So yeah, some level of that. I'm getting back into it in the bear too, for sure. Get a little more time on my hands. So diving back into that fun stuff. What about you guys? I want to hear your answers to that one.
Oh God.
Ooh.
I think
Oh shit.
I mean, I'm praying I never have to get a normie job again. We need another cycle because I can't go back
I
to
would probably
fucking waking up at 6 a.m.
yeah. God, I'd probably be doing something in tech still. Like, I mean, I'd probably be doing some like tech BD role that isn't crypto. I think I would like go towards that. If not, I'd be like a writer or in politics.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What about you, Kit?
I would either be in game design or game development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I would
Did you
hate my
sign up
life.
for parallel early access?
I did not, bro. Do you have the plug?
Dude,
Plug me.
it's a tweet, so I could drop the tweet in the
You
chat.
dropped- yeah.
But yeah,
Perfect.
definitely sign up and get in that. It's a blast. So yeah.
Will do. Well, Rogue, thank you so much for jumping on, man. This has been such a pleasure. Right from the get, I felt like we just vibed
Yeah.
real well.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure talking to you, and thank you guys both so much for having me on. This was a great time, and this is a dope pod. I'm happy we have some more excellent content creators in the space and some smart dudes.
Oh, thank you. It's good
Thanks,
to have you
bro.
on, Rogue. Can't wait to have you on the next one.
Thank you, sirs.
Yes, we'll catch you when the pond launches.
Yeah, catch you in the pond.
Yeah, keep an eye out on the Yunt Twitter for that. The Yunt Capital Twitter for that. Dropping soon.
Pond soon. TM. Cool, brother.
Peace.
Thank you so much.
Peace, y'all.
Thank you, everyone, for watching this episode of Flywheel. We had on Rogue Itachi from Yunt Capital and Goodwill Yunting. Final thoughts on this one, Kit. What did you think?
Man, sometimes I forget how good of a dude this guy is.
He is a good
I
dude.
met him. Yeah, I think I met him a year ago, right now in New York, and we had sushi. And again, right then and there, I also just vibed with him immediately too, and kind of seeing what he's built over the last year and all the builders he's helped. Like he's just really tapped in to the scene, you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, now you can tell like he's on the ground. He has his pulse on things, like, and he really cares about helping builders. And like honestly, talking to him and listening to him, like I saw like a lot of myself in him, and I think like that's why we vibed so well together because our values align so much in terms of like how we act in the space and where we want to see the space go. So like definitely like good pod, and like we got deep into things. We got like deep into the discussions about like DeFi and like where yield is going and where real world assets is going. So, we covered a whole plethora of bases.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of people we can do that with, So
I know.
I really enjoyed this pod. I hope the listeners enjoyed it as well.
Yeah. If you want more culture and you want more deep conversations, do not forget to subscribe. Hit that bell button. Hit that like button. Let us know what you think on our YouTube. Don't forget, follow us on Twitter at Flywheelpod. Join the discussion on Telegram at Flywheelpod. And follow me on Twitter at DeFi Dave 22.
Follow me at 0xcapital_K.
And we'll see you next week. Peace.
Peace.
Everything said on this episode is not financial or tax advice. This channel is strictly for educational purposes and is not an investment advice or solicitation to buy or sell any assets or to make any financial decisions. This video is not tax advice whatsoever. Please talk to your accountant and do your own research.